Professor Carlos Leal from Colombia. You're in Bogota right now. Welcome to my channel. We're going to talk all things Shockwave. So I'm going to introduce you to everyone. Not that you need any introduction, but I think it's nice because I learned a few things about you. You are a professor at I want to say Bosque University, how we would say it, but you might have a different...
You would say Bosque University. It's Bosque. Like forest. Yeah.
Okay, a forest university. And you're a knee surgeon from New York University. You are the International Society for Medical Shockwave Treatment, the scientific director and former president, no doubt. You were trained by names that we'll know, Professor Jan-Dirk Romper and Wolfgang Schaden from Austria, and you know, these are people that anyone in the Shockwave world knows just as much as they know you. Founder of the Colombian Society and the Federation of Shockwave Medicine, 20 years in America next year for Shockwave. A maritime medical doctor, aeronautic medical doctor for Lufthansa, tour doctor for Cirque du Soleil. It goes on and on and on. You have something like 26 published papers, 3 chapters in academic books. We've got, 12 medical research awards and in excess of 3,000 national international congress. There is an absolute dearth of people with that much experience and education that we could all hope to speak to on any level in any setting. But to have that on a Shockwave channel coming out of the northeast of England in the UK is beyond incredible. I see you as my own personal mentor in the Shockwave world. I've got a lot to learn from you. It is an absolute privilege to have you here. How does that sound as an introduction for you, sir?
It's just only one thing missing. I'm a friend of yours, which is very important.
There you go.
Thank you. It's been a long life now, a nice career and experience, and a life-changing experience also in getting into regenerative orthopedics and getting into shockwave medicine. It has become now more than 60-70% of my practice being a surgeon is more into regenerative orthopedics now. I learned that if you don't operate on people, you don't heal people. And that was the feeling in the past century. Now what I teach to my residents is that surgery is probably a failure of medicine if you don't really prevent and you don't regenerate. So I've been very lucky. I've been surrounded by very good people. I've had the good luck of betting into the proper things in medicine that I knew that would grow because they were biologically logical. And thank God it's been successful. And now here we are 20 years after working on this technology and teaching and learning more and more every day.
I think it's incredible to be experiencing friendships like this all over the world through, if Shockwave gives my patients an accelerated healing of maybe 40%, if it turns me into a better medical practitioner, that's also great. But introducing me to a raft of new friends around the world, where this channel is ultimately designed to bring some of the experiences that I've had traveling the world and going to national and international congress. And it's not just listening to the lectures that are up on the screen. It's those talks over a coffee, over a beer, over some food, in the breaks and in the evenings, which have really dramatically changed my ability to work with Shockwave, because I get to chat to great minds like yourself and the rest of the board of the ISMST, the other people that are there. And so if in some small way from my home office in my house here, I could start to develop that side of it for people all around the world to come and view, and I don't think that people will quite understand the length of experience that you've got, the much smaller but significant amount of commitment that I've made to really understanding the science of Shockwave and its clinical usage, and to be able to bring that together when you've got two minds colliding in in Beijing, and then colliding again in Colombia, as we did when you very kindly invited me to present at your conference in South America earlier this month. And then you put that together with Carsten Nodlock, with Thomas Nadelka, with Wolfgang Schade. You bring all these people together, and it's like atoms exploding on each other, and the effect around the world, I believe, is huge. How did you, Carlos, get into Shockwave in the first place?
It all started more than 20-something years ago when I was doing my postdoctoral research fellowship at Harvard Medical, and my colleague on the next table was from Germany doing his PhD, and he got these papers to validate the use of lithotripsy in orthopedics, and we were both laughing like crazy. We didn't believe that had any application at all or any sense. So he threw it away, and I just actually took those documents out of the paper basket, and I said, this kind of looks interesting, but nothing could be developed because I was not the guest for that. Years after that, Professor Werner Siebert came here to Colombia, and he presented his first works on tendinopathies and bone. And I got just fascinated with the technology, and I asked him to go over to Germany and do some training there. Actually, I had to go as a trainee in hip surgery, which I do not do because that was the way I could get the sponsorship for that center in Kassel. And well, I went there and I saw the results, and I started seeing everything and being able to see firsthand how the people healed and get rid of pain. And all of a sudden you see this x-rays of people and saying, listen, lady, I don't think this worked because your calcification is still there. And they go like, you know what? I'm playing golf and I've been like terrible for 7 years. And now I've got 4 years after Shockwaves, and I don't know, you can do whatever you want with your x-rays. I'm fine. So that was even more important to me. And then I went to Mainz University with Dr. Jande Kumpe, and he was more than a clinician. He was he still is a real good researcher in basic sciences. So I learned a lot about biologics. And finally, we had to try to get one of these devices into Colombia, and it was very hard because they were expensive, they were big, and we didn't have the support from anyone. After knocking doors here and there, we got the first device from Dirix, a company from Israel, and they believed in us, and they gave us the first device. And then we started doing work, and then we started doing patients and seeing the amazing results. We published the first papers in my first ever Shockwave conference in Mainz a couple of years after that, 2 years after that. And from then on, a long career history of publications, being involved in a managing board, being involved in the participation and understanding the family of Shockwaves, and became a president in 2012 and had a beautiful meeting in Cartagena. And we've been growing ever since, and we will keep growing. I'm sure that we will keep on moving forward.
It's a great passage from deciding to pick that thing out the bin and look at it when that's the reaction that we can still get in the UK when we mention Shockwave. People can almost laugh at us and go, oh God, I've read some stuff about that, it doesn't work. And
they call you the Shockwave guy.
Yeah.
Oh, here comes a Shockwave guy. No, it's not like, well, okay.
Yeah, exactly. And we've spoken previously about this notion of when we get together at like the international conference, it's like a reboot. You get to plug in and you see all the new science that's come up. I mean, what is it? There's 5 10-minute presentations every hour. It's from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. It's 3 or 4 days long. The amount of information there and the discussions around the table at other times, it's incredible to come away from that and kind of walk into a room and it's like, how do you not know about this? It's quite incredible. So within that, and certainly within the UK, there's a great deal of uncertainty about how best to use Shockwave, and whether you should have a high level of millijoules per millimeter squared or a high bar pressure, or whether you can work on these lower pressures like nano pressure. What is the best for each indication? There's so much discussion around it. There's so many different machines and different settings, and people have these no pain, no gain philosophies. Other people say, well, we don't want to stimulate stress hormone by making it too painful. Try and, at least from your perspective, Carlos, clear up some of that. Where do you think the truth lies in all of these different settings?
Not easy. I mean, we do not have a very strict parameter. We don't even know what is high energy and low energy. So far, we have the information from our research all over this 20, 25 years, what the industry gets. And we kind of know more or less the devices that are producing the energy and how much energy they are. And we are just like into high and low, into focused radio, into unfocused and electromagnetic, for example. But so far, I think that the big learning is that it always heals. It always creates a response. The good and bad fact of shockwaves is that are safe and effective and easy to use. So you can play around and still have good results with any protocol. So our job as scientists is definitely to move around and give people like a very strict parameter of what to do. So high energy is for big things like bone, where we know that you do need a powerful and distant energy with a focal device. Very difficult to heal a bone that is, even if it's superficial, with a pressure energy that may end up in skin damage, for example. So maybe you could go with nano, small doses in many sessions, and that's another strategy. It could work. So far, we found that it doesn't. It's much better, for example, in long follow-ups, to have a very good, one strong, powerful, focused for bone, instead of having a lot of tiny little nano stimulations. Not the same thing in skin. In skin, you need like 10 with very low, and then the parameters are totally different. So that's why you have to come to these meetings and understand how to use the device and how to use the protocols and how to perform. But then again, you may come back and you say, you know what, I'm going to change this, change that. And maybe you find good results, bring it to us. And then we will try to figure out what is best. And that's the way that has happened. For example, in skin, we've used one weekly session for many years, and now we're using every 3 weeks with better results. And we used to have like 2 or 3 sessions, and now we use 6. So it's a 3-month period treatment, and we get better results. We get better results with high energy bone devices in just one session as having, I don't know how many. So to answer the question, it's not easy, but I would say that every application, every protocol has its energy and its device as a recommendation, that you could go with that or without it. But if you stick with the protocols, then you can compare your results with the rest of the world, and then you do a better job, a medical better job.
I think we should celebrate this evolutionary phase. I mean, just a couple of years ago, I was telling the people in the UK that came to my courses, you're still the early adopters as far as the UK is concerned. As far as Germany's concerned, we're and America's concerned, that's a different story. But in the UK, 2 years ago, people on my courses were still early adopters. There was maybe only 5 of them in the room. Now there might be 25 in the room, and people are starting to jump on the bandwagon, because there are some people who sit back and go, I'll wait and see how this goes. 40 years focused shockwave therapy has been around. To my knowledge, not one person has ever complained or had a medical complaint. 20 years nearly, we've had radio shockwaves around. Again, nothing's come through, no long-term issues. So as you quite rightly say, there's nothing negative, and yet people seem to be coming out of my clinic, your clinic, clinics around the world, having fantastic treatment outcomes from using shockwave. And I think you can read and read and read and read and read, and you can study and you can watch. When you get that machine in your clinic and you start to see the results in front of your own eyes, I think that's when the lights come on. So what future research do you think is most needed for the world of shockwave therapy at this moment in time?
3 big fields of development and research. One of them is in physics, the other one would be biologics, and the other one is applications. clinical applications. I believe in physics we're facing a challenge of trying to understand a parameter that is comparable between all the devices that are out there. Nowadays, you can actually go to our workshops and use 3 different devices from 3 different companies and put it in your hand with the same amount of energy, and it feels totally different. So our challenge is to try to find out a way of having one single or very simple 2 or 3 parameters to understand how we can measure energy and how that energy can be really directed into the body. So that would be like the first challenge. So the ISMST has a group of researchers and physicists working on that. And so trying to get rid of just a simple measurement of millijoules per square millimeter or bars in just atmospheres and pressure. And that's a challenge that comes from the lab and physics and mathematics. And we have really interesting people working on that, most of them from Europe and here Latin America. The second challenge would be the biologic challenge. We now understand things that we didn't even know they existed 20 years ago. We thought it was only free radicals, which is like funny right now. We now talk about growth factors. Now we talk about exosomes, and we talk about gene expression. And that's something simple and understandable, but we could not measure that. And now we're sure that the expressions of these cells are showing really good results, both in vitro and in vivo. So in many ways, trying to understand the pathways of mechanotransduction through the cell, through the mitochondria, the macrophages, different cells, and the way they interact with physics and with mechanotransduction is a challenge, and that will be developing. And then the most important will be the clinical applications, because you can have everything in the lab, and then you have to come out to the real world and show people what the applications really are. So I find the most fascinating application in neurology. I believe that probably the big challenge now in clinical application will be central nervous system diseases, such as Parkinson, Alzheimer's, certain cortical defects and all that. Things that in 50 years have not changed the treatment, and they used to be like stereotaxic, very invasive and very dangerous punctures into the skull. And now we can safely do that. Peripheral nerve, medullary, and regeneration of the spine is super interesting. So I think that's a field of work that we can be sure that it will be developing. All the rest, like cardiology and skin, are in a very, very advanced stage. Musculoskeletal, which is basically like 80-90% of the shockwave practice in the world, it is already there. Everybody knows it works. Nobody doubts it works. The only thing is that you may use it or not use it, but the evidence is there. So you will not see a lot of new things going on in musculoskeletal, different in performance, sarcopenia, muscle, and probably prevention of injuries and enhancement of performance in athletes. But it's there, and it makes a difference in the practice of physicians and physical therapists. If you have the device and everybody knows that it works, you will have a better practice, and your patients will be better and will get better. So I believe that probably the challenge of new applications will go especially towards neurology. I think so.
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting area, because we're highly likely to see a broader group of the population to actually understand shockwave. You've hit upon 2 real passions of mine, and that is injury prevention and performance enhancement. And I truly think that that's, I'm trying to talk to 2 or 3 local universities about setting those exact studies up. And I'm reaching a point in the UK where I'm struggling to get over that boundary, because they don't know enough about shockwave. They still want to, measure blood and stuff like this to figure out, what slight training enhancements might be. And I believe that I could come in and my hypothesis would be that you could slow down cell degeneration, that you could enhance recovery,
Sure.
and that would in turn enhance performance. So it would be a very interesting part to it, and so I absolutely agree with you. If you had to choose one academic paper of everything you've read or written yourself, what would be the catalyst paper? What's the one that you think has really changed stuff for you and for clinicians like me, going back historically, or something maybe that's come out really recently? You think that is going to change stuff?
There are many papers that have changed the practice of shockwaves. I would say Dr. Shadden's papers in Skin and Bone are extremely important. All the papers in sports medicine that have come out from Ludger Gerdersmeyer and Dr. Wang are very important. But if you make me choose just one single one, I would choose definitely the Dr. C.J. Wang's 2006 paper at the Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery. It's like the Bible of surgery in orthopedics, and getting a paper published in a non-invasive, non-surgical procedure was quite an achievement. And in that paper, he presented the whole concept of changing the paradigm of mechanical stimulation as a destructive tool into a regenerative tool. And that little graph that you see in every congress, in every meeting, showing that paper, I think that gives the points to become the most important paper in the history of shockwave medicine. Because you finally change mechanical stimulation, you end up with tissue regeneration. And in the middle, you have growth factors, ENOS, all sorts of things that enhance vascularity and enhance cell differentiation and migration. That single concept brought into the world of orthopedic surgery, to me, is the key point of the most important article paper ever written in history of shockwave medicine.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I'll be digging that out and putting a link up for everyone to see. That's a great historical point, and I will be. I know of the paper, I'm aware of the paper, but the importance of it might not have been fully on my radar, and that is now in my new training program. So that will definitely be part of it. So here's a quick one. You'll have a radial and a focus machine, probably many of them. If you could only keep one machine, you could either keep your radial or you could keep your focus. Why would you keep that one machine? What would be the reasons for just choosing that one? And you can't have both. I know you want both, but you can't have both.
So if you're a genius in the bottle and you say you only have one wish, one device, you're a very, very cheap genius. You shouldn't. I would definitely have a combined. I mean, that's the first thing you have to learn. I mean, I think that definitely no single center, a serious good center of or clinic of shockwave medicine in the world can work with just one device. But you're a very cheap genius, so I'm going to answer that. I would definitely stay with a focused, because you can do almost everything with a focused, and you can do not everything with a radial device. The amount of energy, the availability of changing the applicators, the different uses in different specialties is good. You can go as deep as you want. You can be as superficial as you want, and you can still work with the energies that are very well established and very well validated. If you go beyond the applications with radials, then you may be in trouble, and then you're crossing the line of not having the best results. I'm sure that both of them work in mostly everything, but then you have to adjust dosage, energy, sessions, hertz, everything. So I would definitely go for a focused in my practice. You have to think what your practice is. I mean, if you only work in physical therapy, or you only work in orthopedics or in skin, then you will have a device for you to answer that question. But if you're in a center like our center, which is a reference center for Latin America, you need to have 3 or 4 devices of each.
Yeah.
If I have to choose one for my center to start, probably I would go in my practice for a focus. Many people may start with a smaller machine, less expensive, and with 60-70% of the practice covered. But still, the day will come when you say, I need something else because I see these other people having better results with a larger device, and I need to be a little bit ahead of the rest of my colleagues that are not using it. And definitely the results are better. A little bit sometimes, a lot sometimes, not proven and not easy to give the evidence that this is better or not. But to answer your questions, I go for focused.
Yeah, I use my focus a lot more than I use my radial. I couldn't be without my radial because of all the little adaptions we put on for myofascial release, the spine, things like that. But I think that once you've had a focus machine, you're smitten with it. I think that once you've just got a radial machine, you're smitten with it until you first road test the focus, and then when you put them both together and you have a combined unit, maybe you're applying some high-powered laser as well, and all of your graded exercise programs and all the other stuff you do, it just becomes a natural extension of what you use. But I would answer the question in the same way, in that I wouldn't want to be without my focus, but it would make me think for a second, because I'd have to suddenly, being a physiotherapist, I'd have to go through my client list and go, oh, there's a few people there I couldn't treat if I just had focus, but then there's a few people I couldn't treat if I just had radial. So I think it's a great answer. So let's jump forwards. Let's do a Martin McFly and jump forwards to 2025. We've just got in the DeLorean and we've shot off and we've landed in 2025. What does the landscape of shockwave therapy look like in 5 or 6 years from now, do you think?
First thing is that I think it will keep growing. That's the first thing. It won't go back. It's there. I believe that we have been pretty much refugees of the medical world doing our technology. Some kind of somehow in isolation, trying to make a technology grow, something that you don't see in many things in medicine. I mean, you don't see like arthroscopy growing away from surgeons. No, it's surgeons that make arthroscopy grow. Mm. But here, surgeons have been very, very much away from the technology. We've had to work this 20 years by ourselves and show them that it works. So in 5 to 6 years, I expect to have more involvement of all the societies and the medical world from their own initiatives into us and not from us into them. And I think that you will see that. You will see more neurology meetings and publications inviting and having shockwaves as part of their therapeutic armamentarium, as well as in orthopedics, as well in urology and dermatology, and definitely in everything that has to do with rehabilitation and physical therapy. So I think it will grow. That's the first thing. The second is that we will have new applications and validations that for sure will happen. More peer-reviewed journals, more evidence. Right now we have more evidence in most of our tendinopathies treated by shockwaves than any other treatment. Not even PRP, not even surgery, not even physical therapy, because it's very hard to prove. But you have more and more technology that grows and grows. So in 5 years, I think that probably we will see very good applications in neuro, cardio, and skin, and a lot more of acceptance in musculoskeletal. I would believe that.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that there's a younger generation coming on who've grown up with technology, and there are some of the older members of I'm talking about the people I know in the UK who have not so much grown up with technology, and they're kind of pushing it away. This is not, I'm 5-10 years from retirement. I've never had to use this before. I'm brilliant at what I do. And I think that the base of the triangle will become bigger and bigger, because technology won't be scary to the new people who graduated 2 or 3 years ago, or are going to graduate in the next 2 or 3 years. And so I think it will become a normal part. It will be an obvious step for them to reach for something, which by then will have 45 years worth of evidence behind it. Not, we're talking about 40 years. Nothing bad's ever happened. Only good things. I I would like to see your vision come true. So
Sure.
for the people just coming into it now, maybe they're watching this because they're thinking of getting a Shockwave. Maybe they're 1 or 2 years in. I mentioned before, I see you as a mentor for me. If you could give a quick snapshot of the Carlos magic to those people, what would be the three main mentor points you would say to those people watching?
3 points. Well, would be first of all that this is not witchcraft. This is science. This is a technology that has evolved from a very well-known physical principle into findings that we have brought into medicine in 25, 30 years. So a big challenge is to make them understand that, and you see this all the time in courses, people come like very skeptic, like finding if this is something like acupuncture or something very, very strange or rare that maybe it works, but nobody knows how it works. Now we know that this is a real biological technology that creates very predictable results. So the first advice would be understand that this is science and this is not like alternative medicine. This is real medicine. Maybe the second part is to get trained and to understand very well the protocols and how to use the devices. If you don't, it's not rocket science. You just have a little device in your hand and you put it over a tissue, and then after 20 minutes, that's it. It sounds like kind of stupid, but everything that's going on behind that and what you're delivering there and all the technology and knowledge that goes behind that is something that we need to make people understand it works. So the second thing would be like get trained and really understand how the protocols are, the applications are, and why do we get to have a list of approved applications and experimental applications, and what you should do and what you can do actually with your knowledge and with your background and your patients. And then the third one would be like use the proper parameters and bring them to us, bring them to the world, bring them to our congresses, to our meetings, and grow not only understanding how to use it, but bring back your feedback and tell us what you're doing. And that way we will enhance our data from all over the world as well. So I think my advice would be very serious about understanding science, be very serious about understanding applications, and be very serious about participating with your work in this family of Shockwaves.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that's fantastic. And, it really is a family. If you, this has been my experience, you show that you're interested, you go along, you participate, you ask the right questions, good questions. People just sweep you in and say, what do you want to know? What else? How else can I help you? It's not one of those groups where it's kind of, we have the knowledge, you lot stand over there. You want this new blood coming in and developing the society and participating, and that really comes across through the core values of the ISMST, and it's one reason why I will fly its flag and be at every single conference from this day forwards without missing one. Unless there's some major life event that would obviously get in the way, I tell you, I'll be there come sickness or whatever. So I'm totally sold. Can we just finish off by getting to know the person behind the brain? So sometimes I think that the people that sit up on high, certainly medically, there are physiotherapists, osteopaths, chiropractors, sports therapists, sports masseurs, other doctors from around the world, other professors who are around the world. It can be a scary thing to say, Professor Leal, can I ask you a question on this thing? A, we kind of don't want to appear stupid, and B, sometimes the person who's right at the top of their game, we make them unapproachable. Not that you're on it, but we make them unapproachable by putting them on that pedestal. And I wonder if we could understand a little bit about the personality of you. Now, I've been very privileged to get to know you quite well, and I've very much enjoyed seeing how you relax after a heavy conference schedule, and even when you were organising the Colombian conference, and clearly very stressful and loads of hard work had gone into it, we still all sat around a campfire, and you still collected the guitar, got behind the mic, and with your perfect tone, you sang to us all. And I thought, I mean, that's the real measure of a man. If I was organising something, I'd be stressing and running everywhere. You seem to have this ability to flip out of the stress and decompress, and clearly you've got a great love of music. So explain how you mix those musical and those medical passions so well, and in such a stressful few days when you're organising a whole conference.
I don't know. I just believe that in many ways, Shockwave people are happy people. We have to deal with filtering the problems of our patients, and you know that as well. You have to sit down and listen to 40 people a day talking about bad things and giving their life to your hands in many ways. If your life is running, they come to you, and I mean, there's the responsibilities. You have to get that filter and give your best for this patient that is asking you for help. So you have to be sensitive or sensible. I don't know how to say that, but you have to be very, very human, and being someone that is like the owner of the technology and the owner of the knowledge and everything is not the way. We have learned more from sharing and learning from our students and our technologies. And that's one thing that we learned from our mentors and the first Shockwave people that started with this. I mean, if they were like, this is a German thing, we're not working with anymore with anyone else. And no, they opened up. They listened to a guy from Colombia 20 years ago bringing a program. And I remember my first talk, and Professor Wang and Shadden stood up in the audience and said, "Oh my God, I'm dead. I'm dead. They're going to kill me." And they said, "So you're doing this in OCD?" And yes, sir. And oh, that's interesting. So you're doing this why are you doing this in stress fractures? So I said, because this and that. And being so open and being able to understand that being simple people and trying to be friendly makes the technology, the friendship, the whole network get together is something that we have learned a lot. So that's really nice, and I appreciate very much your words and all the feeling that you had here in Colombia, because that's the way we do congresses here. That's the way that I pretend to do congresses all over the world. As you know, I'm also in the organization of all the congresses, and you will see a different kind of a medical course. This is a medical course where you really share your stuff. If you want to be ahead of medicine, you read a journal. If you want to be 2 years before the journal, you go to the meetings. If you want to be 2 years before the meetings, you come with us to the bar, to the before party, to the horseback riding thing, and sit down with the experts and say, you know what, this is what I'm doing. Oh, this is why. Oh, yeah. Then you understand things, and you're 4 or 5 years ahead if you really come to this social event. So we understand that very well. You had the experience of the discussions, for example. We have patients. We have discussions. We have open moments for sit down with the experts and talk. And then it's very hard if you have 200 people, 500 people, and then the microphone, and you stand up there and you're scared. You're not scared. You always ask good questions in big meetings. But regular people, they never ask because they're scared. They're not very comfortable. If you have a small place where you have the experts and you sit down with them and you see how they use the things, then you can start asking. And that way, the whole technology has developed. And so far, in every meeting, we have more and more members, more and more people interested. And that means more and more people healing all over the world. And that's our mission.
Yeah, there's a few points that I want to draw out of that, because that was incredibly interesting. One is that, 20 plus years ago, you stood up as I did this year, first time out, and these people, they didn't hold all the information back. They embraced what you were doing. They were interested in what you were doing. They shared their information to develop your information. You shared yours to develop theirs, and that is clearly what runs through the whole ISMST, this international society. Second of all, you mentioned about me asking questions when I was in Beijing. This was like my best days ever. I've been developing everything that I did in the UK largely on my own, reading the stuff from, all the board members were known to me. I knew all your names because I've been reading all your papers, studying your chapters in your books. And then I was getting a chance to see you actually present. It was like being at a concert of your favourite band in a way. And I know I sound like a Shockwave anorak, and a lot of people will roll their eyes, but I wasn't asking questions because I wanted people to hear that I had some. I was asking questions. I always had tunnel vision. I forgot there were 1,499 other people in that room. I wanted your information, and as you were talking, I was writing the information down, and that became my, if you like, my little Bible that I took away, and I changed the way that things happened in the UK off the basis of going to that, and then talking in the bar. It's the reason why we're doing this over Skype right now, is because I felt so lucky that I wanted to share these little interactions with the rest of the world. And so my little idea, I'm really pleased, it kind of comes from the original roots of the ISMST anyway, because that's how everyone has grown it. So I feel really happy that this is happening. So my last thing is that I think everyone has a bucket list. I don't know if you use the same terminology there in South America. This list of things that you just got to do. And on my list, I'd love to swim the Channel. I know lots of people have done it, but I love my open water swimming almost as much as you love your music. So what would be the ultimate bucket list, the number one at the top, so we can really understand who Carlos Leal is?
Carlos Leal. I'm a sailor, I'm a musician, I'm a scientist, and I'm a family member. So that would have to be a combination of all of them. I would say that my top bucket list thing would be sailing my big sailboat with my grandchildren and playing the guitar with Paul McCartney. How about that? That means that if I have a big sailboat, I've been successful in life. If I'm with my grandchildren, I've lived long enough. And if I'm with Paul McCartney, then science was good for his tennis elbow.